Are you thinking about upgrading your payroll system and switching to Sage Business Cloud Payroll mid-tax year? Then you know that your payroll history must match up perfectly. But here's the challenge. Manually re-entering earnings, deductions and contributions isn't just time-consuming, it's nearly impossible to get it all right. In this video of The Fun Accountant, I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step method to import your historic payroll runs into Sage Business Cloud Payroll, which is the only way to force all amounts to match your previous system and bypass Sage's automatic calculations. Now, let's be honest, this process can be tricky. That's why I have chosen a complex payroll example for this demo. If you can handle this, you can handle any payroll import with confidence. By the end of this video, you'll have all the tools you need to get imports done quickly, accurately, and stress-free. Are you ready to master payroll imports? Let's get started. Alright, first things first, why is the import process so important? The main benefit is that it saves you time by automating data entry. Instead of manually entering employee information, you can quickly import everything in one go. But it's not just about speed. Importing also ensures data accuracy, since the import process overrides specific coded figures. It allows you to match exact amounts from your previous payroll system. That way, your numbers stay consistent and compliant. If you're switching to Sage Business Cloud Payroll mid-tax year, your new payroll system must mirror your previous one exactly, period by period. Mistakes in your import means errors that must be fixed before you can move forward. This ties into the golden rule. You must import data per pay period. If you're on a monthly payroll cycle, you need to import March before moving on to April. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this video, a somewhat complex example of a March monthly payroll import. But don't worry, once you see how it's done, this process will make a lot more sense. One more thing to note, once you import data for a specific period, it will replace what was previously in your payroll system. In reality, this works to your advantage. It gives you a quick and easy way to correct any errors. Now let's talk about some critical things to keep in mind to avoid headaches later on. You must use the import template generated within the Sage Business Cloud Payroll. Any other file will result in errors and headaches later on, so keep that in mind. You'll need to be aware of how Sage prioritizes the data. Sage prioritizes the amount column and enter it as a salary. Imported financial data only affects the current payslip period. You cannot import multiple payroll periods at once. Sage will also run a validation check when you import. If there's an error, missing information, wrong format, you're stuck until you fix it. I know how frustrating that can be, but no worries. I'll guide you through the process step by step in this video so you can avoid issues and get the import right the first try. Now that we've covered the rules, let's talk about what you can't import and why it's not as scary as it sounds. Here's the deal. There is certain employee salary information which you cannot import automatically. But before you panic, some of these payroll definitions actually have built-in automation, which means entering them is much quicker than you think. And the best part, I'll be showing you how to do it later on. Here's the list of what you'll need to capture manually. Annual bonus. Provision for tax on annual bonuses. Pension fund contributions. Medical aid contributions. Provident Fund contributions, retirement annuity contributions. I know it sounds like a lot, but trust me, once you get the hang of it, it's a breeze. Lastly, let's touch on the ETI or Employment Tax Incentive calculations. If an employee is marked as having fixed hours on their contract in the ETI screen, calculations will be based on those hours from their hours and rates screen. But here's the catch. If they only worked part of the month, make sure you import those hours accurately to avoid any surprises. That wraps up all the import rules. Now we're ready to move into the actual process, setting up your employee, importing the data, and tackling issues like pension or medical aid. But before we move on, what's been your experience with payroll imports? Got any tips or lessons learned? Please share them in the comments. I would love to hear your story. The first step in the import workflow is to create the import template, and there's no way around it. You have to use the Sage Payroll system generated template, as any other format will result in an import file being rejected. Let me show you how to generate it and set everything up correctly. Here I am on the home screen of Sage Business Cloud Payroll. From here, go to the top navigation bar next to More. Click the drop-down icon and select Data Take-On. You land on the Import History page. I already have an import history here because I previously imported the employee details. Now select Create Template, and under Information Type Selection, tick the checkbox for Employee Financials. This opens the payslip definition screen, where you can choose which earnings, deductions, company contributions, and fringe benefits need to be included in your template based on your historical payroll data. The best way for me to figure out which definitions to select is by checking the data from my previous payroll. I've placed the historical payroll data on the right side of my screen to use as a reference. I'll be cross-referencing the totals to make sure I don't miss a single definition when creating the import template. Let's start at the top of the historical data and work our way down. We begin with the employee's earnings. First up is salary. The corresponding field in Sage Payroll is basic salary, so that's what I select. Next, I see leave paid out in the historical data. I mark its corresponding definition under earnings in Sage. After that, there's back pay. Interestingly, there's no amount listed for March 23, so it's not necessary to include it in the template like I have. This is a good example. Even if a column like back pay is in your template but has no data, the import will still work. Moving down, I notice an amount for commission, which I need to add. A disability fund allowance, which is unique for this company. With that selected, I've now covered all the earnings definitions for this company's payroll for March 23. Now let's head over to the deduction section. What's referred to as pay as you earn in the historical data is called tax in Sage Payroll, so I select that. Next is UIF, followed by pension and provident funds. If you remember from earlier, pension and provident funds can't be imported and will need to be handled manually later. There's also rent, which is a deduction for this company. I locate and select it under the deductions definitions. Loan deductions are next. Oh, there it is, above rent. I also see advances, which is right above the loan definition. Finally, there are discovery, vitality, and gap cover deductions. These are all part of the medical aid scheme deductions, which again cannot be imported automatically. But don't worry, we'll cover how to handle those manually a bit later. And with that, we've now covered all the deductions definitions from our historical payroll data for March 23. Now that we've covered deductions, let's move on to company contributions, which is what the total CC refers to in the historical data. We'll start with UIF as the first company contribution. We can skip pension and Provident Funds for now, as those will be handled later. Similarly, we can ignore leave and COIDA provisions, since they're primarily used for accounting entries. That brings us to the Skills Development Levy, which will be included here. And that's it for the company contribution section. We've now completed the selection of our payslip definitions for the import. With that done, I'm going to move to the historical payroll data and bring Sage Payroll back to full screen. With our template fields and columns set, let's hit that bright green Create File button in the bottom corner and generate our import file. Now here's the good news. The import file has been successfully created, and it comes with guidelines for entering employee data. We've already covered most of these guidelines, but take a moment to look them over again. If you ever get stuck, you can always return to this screen to troubleshoot and see what might have gone wrong. With that out of the way, let's press OK and take a peek at the Excel format import template, which is now ready and waiting for us to add the financial information. What's the biggest drawback with importing any data set? The historical data from your previous payroll is never ever in the same format as your shiny new template. This is where the rubber hits the road. You've got to get that historical information into the template. Sure, you can copy it cell by cell. That's actually what I used to do at first. Take a look at the data I've been given. Each employee's salary information is grouped together, and each month's figures are laid out in separate columns. I'll be honest, this layout makes logical sense, but it's a far cry from the template we just created. The template only wants 1 month's data for the entire file. In my case, March 2023 and only March 2023. Each employee gets a dedicated row with all the payroll definitions, earnings, deductions, and contributions spread across multiple columns. So the employee's salary figures need to go under the designated column in the spaces they belong. Okay, that's doable. I can start copying the information from the historical spreadsheet into the template, just like I'm doing here. As you can see, this works. Copy-paste beats manual typing. But let's be real, it's still extremely time-consuming. But what if I told you I found a way to beat this process? That's right, I used ChatGPT to bypass all that copying, and surprisingly, I quickly created a file that mirrors the template perfectly. And now I'm going to show you exactly how I did it using ChatGPT. I know you're excited, so am I. Before I get started with converting the historical data, there's something important to note. The information I'm using in this demo is completely fake, strictly for demonstration purposes. Also, when importing employees' information, the only identifier Sage needs is the employee code, That's it. No names or surnames are required. Now here I am in ChatGPT. Take a look at the prompt I've given it. This prompt can be a huge help if you ever need to convert a spreadsheet into your desired layout. I'm also sharing a portion of the spreadsheet with you so you can follow along and see exactly what I'm asking ChatGPT to do in this example. So here's what I tell ChatGPT. I've got a spreadsheet containing employee income and deductions, and the data runs from column A to C and rows 1 to 1818. Next, I give ChatGPT the following instructions. 1. Identify the employee codes in column A and create a column header called code for them. 2. Beneath each employee code, there are rows with categories like salary in column A and their corresponding values for March 2023 in column C. 3. Extract these categories as additional column headers. Examples include salary, UIF, etc. 4. Populate the values found in column C under the appropriate headers for each employee. 5. Stop extracting when you reach the word total in column A. 6. Output a table where each row represents one employee. The first column is the employee code. The other columns contain the income and deduction categories with their March 2023 values. Finally, provide the output as a downloadable Excel file. Next, I upload the file into ChatGPT straight from my downloads folder. Let's see what happens when I press the upload arrow. ChatGPT starts processing my request, giving me feedback on what it thinks I'm trying to do, which is spot on so far. Now here's where things get interesting. I got an error message at first, but instead of stopping, ChatGPT continues working to resolve the issue. I mean, how brilliant is that? It doesn't just throw up its hands and quit. It keeps pushing forward. And sure enough, I get a confirmation message that the data has been successfully extracted. Right below that, there's a download link for the completed file. I go ahead and save the file to complete the download. Upon opening the file, you'll see I've placed the original historical data on the left and the ChatGPT extracted file on the right. Now, when you look at the extracted file, each employee code represents a unique employee. All the payroll information such as salary, UIF, and other categories is displayed across the row in separate columns next to their code. This format is exactly what's required for importing data into Sage. And I have to admit, I'm pretty blown away by how it looks and what I've achieved with ChatGPT. I mean, the data is perfectly formatted and ready to transfer to the import template. It's a simple and fast process. Honestly, I don't even want to think about how long it would have taken me to get the data into this format manually. But okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. Is the data extraction really accurate? Let's test it. First, I want to keep the headers visible while I work, so I'll freeze the panes under the data menu. Now to check for accuracy, I'll use the sum formula to total each field in the extracted data and compare it to the totals from the original data. I'm starting with the salary column. So here's the total from ChatGPT's data. 343,651.70. Now let me scroll down to the bottom of the original data. And there it is, 343,651.67. This is insane. A great sign that the data matches. I'm going to mark the total in red bold font as a reminder that it's been checked and verified. I also highlight both cells in yellow because I want to check and compare the totals for all the other fields. If all the fields totals match the original data, it will be proof that ChatGPT has done the extraction correctly and that the data is ready to be used for the template. I'm copying the sum formula from the salary column to all the other columns in the ChatGPT file. I'm doing this to double check that the amounts extracted by ChatGPT are correct by summing the totals and comparing them to the original data. I'll have the surety I need that the ChatGPT data is 100% accurate and reliable. Okay, now let me just move the spreadsheet up a bit. There we go. The next total I'm comparing is the total earnings. The amount comes to 369,190. And let's check the original data. It agrees perfectly. Now I'm going to mark the original data in yellow and the ChatGPT processed amount in red to show that this field has been checked and verified. Now moving on to the Unemployment Insurance Fund or UIF, the total amount is 3534 and it agrees with the original data on screen. Perfect match. Since you've already seen how I mark these amounts, I'll quickly highlight the original cell in yellow and the GPT data in red font. Let's keep applying this process. Alright, now onto Provident Fund deductions. The total is 11,560.78, and would you look at that? It lines up perfectly with the original data. That's another field verified and out of the way. Let's check total deductions. This will be a good test. If it agrees, I'll speed things up, do a time lapse, and call out each field name as I go. I mean, who wants to watch me do this for the next hour? Exactly. Here's the plan. If something goes wrong, don't worry, I'll stop, hopefully not panic, and we'll see what happened. But so far, things have gone swimmingly, so I'm not expecting any panic stations just yet. And there it is. Total deductions of 66,139 is another perfect match. Just what I want to see. Let's wrap these checks up quickly. Total net. Provident Fund under the company contributions. Leave provision. OID provision. SDL provision. There's another Provident Fund insurance entry. You'll see later on exactly where this fits in. The total company contributions verified. The total employee costs to company agrees. Next up are a few acronyms, and honestly, I have no idea what they stand for. They are not fields in my import file, but all I care about is whether GPT extracted the data accurately. And sure enough, it's a perfect match. Next up are a few fields I at least recognize, but they aren't used in the import file. We've got taxable earnings, tax deductions, and tax net and earn. 11. Who knows what those last two fields even mean? If you have the answer, drop it in the comments, please. But most importantly, all of these fields match perfectly. Let's move the data up and check the fields we haven't looked at yet. There it is. Pay as you earn, a very important field. that will be included in the import. And it agrees perfectly. Next, we've got a couple of deductions to check. Pension, advances, and then pension contributions by the company. There's also a pension insurance deduction. Again, I've got another couple of fields that won't be used in the import file. I'm going to blitz compare them.
Late at night, the world is sleepy. I'm sitting thinking, dreaming.
Discovery Medical Aid, company contributions. Related gap cover and the employees' medical aid deductions are all good. It matches. Commission, done. There's another vitality gap cover. Loan deductions are good too. Disability under earnings, checked. Leave paid out, another match. Next up, rent deductions. Also, the company's UIF contribution agrees. It looks like the last employee payroll definition is the Discovery Medical Aid. As I scroll through the ChatGPT file, I can see all the files are marked in red and yellow. More importantly, every field from the original payroll export has been marked, meaning the ChatGPT file has accurately extracted all the data.
I'm sitting thinking, dreaming. Where has it all gone disappearing?
You'll sometimes find that the historical data spreadsheets don't contain all the information you need. For example, in my case, after scrutinizing the data file, I found deductions made by the company for loans granted to employees. These loan deduction fields are shown on my screen, but there are no loan balances listed. It would of course be helpful to import loan balances so that deductions can be recorded against them. This way the system can maintain running loan balances and track what's still owed by the employees. Fortunately, upon a request the company this demo is based on provided me with the loan balances brought forward as of the beginning of March 2023. You can see those balances displayed on the screen now. The fastest way for me to handle this issue is by modifying my ChatGPT setup template. First, I'll rename the existing loan column to loan deduction so I know exactly where that data belongs. Then I'll add another column, name it loan balance, and enter the balances for each employee code in their respective rows. Since there are just 3 loan balances, this will be quick and easy. Here's what the data looks like. Employee code 37784, balance of 1,500. Employee code 37922, balance of 500. Employee code 37960, balance of 5687.70. And that's how you can handle missing information by adding it directly to your import template.
With the shadows of the light.
Now that we've verified that the data extraction is accurate, it's time to get hands-on and move the data where it belongs. This is the part where everything starts coming together. We'll take the process data from ChatGPT and copy it into the Sage import template, column by column. Here's how it looks on my screen. ChatGPT data on the right and the Sage template on the left. I'm going to show you exactly how I handle this process. You'll remember that when importing an employee's historic payroll run into Sage Business Cloud Payroll, the system uses the employee code to identify where the payroll definitions belong. There are no names or surnames, just the employee code. So that's where I'm going to start, with the first column on the left, employee code. Let's copy it from the ChatGPT file and paste it into the template. There we go. Alright, next up we're going to copy the employee's basic salary into the template. But here's a quick tip to make things easier. I'm going to freeze the panes on both files. That will lock the headings in place, so we can easily refer back to them without any scrolling headaches. We've already copied over the employee code and basic salary. So now let's move on to the next fields. Next is leave paid. Copy that over to the template. Next, let's copy commission earned over to the template. And reviewing it shows it's accurate. One employee has a disability earning, so let's copy that over to the template. Next, we've got tax, which is called pay as you earn in the GPT data. But let's be honest, we all know what it is. It's tax. It goes in there. Next to the tax column, we have Employees Unemployment Insurance Fund, or UIF deduction. Let me just find it from the data. There it is. Copy, paste, and we're good. Now the advanced deduction. Looks good. Next, we've got the loan balances. Let's get those in. Followed by the loan deductions. Let's copy those over as well. This company provides housing, and a small amount is deducted from employees for rent. Let's copy those rent amounts over to the template and double check that the block of data copied matches the exact number of lines when pasting it. The next field in the import template is Unemployment Insurance Fund contributions by the company. I'll track it down in the original data. Highlight it, copy and paste it into the template, and check that the pasted data aligns with the employee code rows. Yes, it aligns beautifully. The last field to be copied over is the SDL levy. I need to check where it is in the original data. Same process as before. Highlight the data, copy it, and paste it into the template to get it where it belongs. We've copied everything over, but how do we know it's correct? The best way to check, and something I highly recommend, is to run a simple control check of the totals. Instead of scrolling endlessly and manually checking each row, here's a smarter, more powerful way to do it. We'll sum up each column and compare the totals to the original data. If the totals match, we know the import is spot on. If not, we've got an issue to fix. So let's do this together. You can already see that the salary amounts tie up. Now to check the rest. I'm copying the sum formula across all the columns. Next up, leave paid out, tracking it down. There it is. It matches. Tick. Commission 6379.15, tick. Disability 9444.29, tick. Tax 14723.11, check. UIF 3554.16, tick. Advanced deductions both 4,000 Rand, tick. Loan balance 7686.70. First, let me find it. Oh, there it is. But wait, it's not totaled. Easy fix. I'll copy the sum formula over. And there we go. 7686.70. Tick. Loan deduction 2137.33. Tick. Rent 4,800. Tick. Company UIF contribution 3534.16. Tick. And finally, the last column in the import template, skills development levy 3640.56, tick. Now let's remove the total amounts in the template. If we leave them, we're going to run into issues with the import. And lastly, I'll save the template to lock in all the changes. That's it. The template is ready for the next big step, importing it into Sage Business Cloud Payroll. Here we are again at the world famous Sage Business Cloud Payroll homepage. Now you'll notice this is the first month of the financial year, which is exactly the period I want to import. Remember, we're doing this month by month. To import the employee earnings and deductions for this period, head over to the top navigation menu. Next to More, hit the drop-down arrow. Then select Data Take On. Import Data, Employee Financials. Now click the box below to find the import spreadsheet. Select it and hit Upload. The file is now linked in Payroll. Alright then, moment of truth. Let's hope for the best and press that green import file button. The validating file message, that's a good sign, but what we really want to see is the file imported successfully message. And there it is. But hold on, we're not done yet. This file still needs to be processed. So let's do that now. Click OK, and under Import History, you'll see our file sitting at the top. Uploaded, but not yet verified and processed. That's exactly what I'll do now. Check the box under the Verify and Process heading, and let's get the show on the road. The system is loading, and there it is. The Excel file we worked so hard on creating is now displayed. It just looks a bit different. You can see the employee codes and salary amounts, and if you want, you can double check these figures against your import file. I'm happy with what I see, so let's move forward and verify the file. Now I'll confirm the "Are you ready?" message, and Sage starts validating the imported data. And boom! File verified successfully. Would you believe it? We're still not done. At this point, my fingers are numb from clicking OK. But let's push through. Scrolling down, everything looks familiar. And now we've reached the final step, process file. This is the big one. Once I press OK, there's no going back. The import cannot be undone. But am I hesitating? Not a chance. Let's lock it in and get this payroll done. Now, fair warning, Processing a file with this many employees, Sage can take its time. And there it is. File processed successfully. To do a quick test and see if everything came through correctly, I'm heading to Payroll, Payslip in the top menu. Let's check the first fake employee's payslip. And look at that. Spot on. Import complete. Remember earlier when we talked about payroll run definitions that couldn't be imported? One that comes to mind is medical aid, both the employee and the company contributions. I'm highlighting the relevant medical aid columns, which Sage already warned us wouldn't be imported. So what now? How do we get them into the payroll? Let me show you how it works. Before we get too excited, let me find the medical aid details provided by the company whose import I'm doing. They supplied the necessary information and it contains exactly what I need to set up a medical aid for their payroll. When setting up medical aid in payroll, you'll need similar details. The most important ones to look for are the employee code to ensure correct linking, the number of dependents on the medical aid, and the start date of the coverage. But here's something missing. The actual contribution amounts aren't listed. I'll pull those from the payroll historical data prepared by ChatGPT. I've already imported all the employee details, but if you haven't done that before, don't worry, I've got you covered. Check out the video link on the screen where I'll walk you through the process step by step. Getting your employees into the system is crucial because without them, they won't appear when navigating payroll. Once your employees are in, here's how you access their details. From the home page, go to the employee heading in the top navigation menu. Then scroll down and select Employee Details. When Sage opens the Employee Details page, it automatically opens up the first employee in the system. But that's not who we need. I'm looking for an employee with medical aid. And I already know the ones because I found them earlier in the GPT spreadsheet we use to import employee financial information. So let me bring that up on the screen. And there it is, employee code 37952. That's the first employee I'll be working on. Now from the left-hand sidebar, I can locate employee code 37952. Click on it. And under the employee's information, select the medical aid header. This opens the form where I'll enter the relevant medical aid details. The first thing to select is the type of medical aid, company versus private. In this case, it's a company managed plan. Next, I need to enter the number of beneficiaries, which I can find in the company provided information displayed on the screen. That's 4. Then we move on to the amounts that need to be entered. I'll pull those directly from the GPT spreadsheet, now displayed on the screen. Employee contribution, discovery plus gap cover equals 7,625. Company contribution equals 7341. That's it. Just 3 fields to complete. Now I'll press save at the bottom right. With this employee updated, let's see who's next in line for medical aid. Referring back to the GPT spreadsheet, the next employee is employee code 37748. This employee has a discovery medical aid plus vitality. So I'll select both values in the spreadsheet. The total, 3764. I'll need that amount later when entering it into Sage Payroll, so let's keep it handy. Now back in Sage, remember employee code 37748. I'm selecting it now to set up the medical aid. Filling out the medical aid form is the same process as before. First, select the type of medical aid. The total number of beneficiaries is 2. Under the company medical aid heading, the employee contribution is 3764. Remember that amount? The company contribution is 3365. And that's it. We complete the setup by pressing Save. Since you've probably got the hang of it by now, I'm going to speed things up and complete the rest of the employee's medical aid setups. First, I need to find the next employee with medical aid in my GPT spreadsheet. And here we go, employee code 37857. The total medical deduction for discovery and gap cover is 2165. Now back in Sage Payroll, I'm still on the medical aid setup screen, so I'll select employee 37857 from the employee list. Choose company as the medical aid type. Enter 1 as the number of beneficiaries. Enter the employee contribution 2165. Enter the company contribution 1881 confirmed by the GPT spreadsheet. With everything set, I'll press Save to lock it in. The last medical aid setup is for employee 37959. This one is also a company managed medical aid with 4 beneficiaries. Both the employee and the company contribute 3814.50. Let's seal the deal by hitting Save. It's time to take stock. What have I done right? What have I messed up? And what's still left to do? Hopefully I've hit the mark and there's not much left to fix. To run this little audit, I need to get a financial report and compare it to the historical data. Here I am on a familiar Sage home screen. Let's head over to Reports, Financial, and the report I'll be using is the Payroll Totals report for March. Now in Sage, you have to do a preview first, which, fair warning, can take some time to load. And there it is, the Payroll Totals report. First, let me save it. The output looks good, but the real test is how it holds up against the original historical report. Now to make this comparison easier, I've got both reports side by side. I'll go down the Sage Payroll Totals on the right and match them against the original totals on the left. Let's do this quickly and see where we stand. Starting with basic salary. Leave paid out. Commission. For Disability Fund, Sage splits it into 2 amounts, but once I add the Disability Fund reduction, it matches the original. Then for the medical aid contributions, I need to add 3 amounts from the original report. But once I do, it ties up to the Sage total. Tax lines up with pay as you earn from the original. Followed by advances. Loan reduction. and rent. All a perfect match. Next up is the company contribution section. We've got medical aid contribution, skills development levy, and UIF, all checked and matching. Now looking at my totals, total earnings agree once I deduct the disability fund reduction. Same scenario with total deductions and company contributions. They would have lined up perfectly if pension and provident funds were included. And now I have a clear understanding of what's still missing. Pension and provident funds need to be added. But here's the catch. These can't be imported into Sage Business Cloud Payroll. So how do I get this done? Watch me. Back in Sage Business Cloud Payroll, we're starting from familiar territory, the home page. From here, head over to Company. Then scroll down and select Set up Benefit Funds. First up, we're setting up a pension fund. So I'll click the green Add Pension Fund button. Setting up a pension fund is just like filling out a form, but you need to have your ducks in a row. Here's what you'll need. The fund name, fund clearance number, a common stumbling block for many, but critical if you want your RP5 to pass SARS validations. Now, under the contribution setup, enter a description. I'm just using the fund name again. In most cases, pension fund calculations are based on a percentage of specific earnings, typically 100% of basic salary. Sage lets you choose from multiple earning sources, but for this company, basic salary alone determines the pension fund contribution. Most small businesses use a defined contribution plan. For this company, employee contribution equals 7%. Company contribution equals 11%. That's all there is to it. Click Save. And just like that, the pension fund is set up, neatly categorized and visible under pension funds in Sage. You can see the end result over here for the pension fund deduction and company contribution being applied to an employee. To get this done, after setting up the fund, you need to link the correct employees to the fund each pay period. While the step needs to be repeated for every payroll cycle, once linked, the pension fund deductions and contributions will be automatically calculated and recorded for that period. Now, because we're working with an import, we're not just setting this up, we're recording transactions that have already happened. That's why the company provided me with a list of employee codes for those enrolled in the pension fund. Using this list as a reference, let me show you exactly how to link the fund to employees step by step. Let's find the payslip section. Starting from the home page, navigate to Payroll, then scroll down and select Payslip. This takes you to the employee list, and here's where our pension fund list comes in handy. In the employee search field, I'll enter employee code 37748, which is at the top of our list. That brings up the employee's payroll options. Now let's head over to the payslip. Let me just move the pension fund list to the side. Now, looking at the deduction section of the payslip, click the plus next to it and select Pension Employee Contribution. From here, choose the pension fund we set up earlier. This is also where we enter the membership start date. First of December 2015. Press OK to save. And let's check the results. And there it is. Pension employee contribution and pension company contribution successfully applied for that employee. Let's see who's next in line. It's employee code 37590. I'm repeating this process so the workflow really sinks in. In the employee search bar, I'll enter the code. The search instantly narrows it down to a single result. Select the employee and head to Payslip. Now open the options with deductions. Select Pension Employee Contribution. Choose the fund and enter the membership start date. 1st of February 2009. Done. Press OK and back to the payslip. As before, entering the pension employee contribution automatically adds the company contribution. For the next 4 employees, 37959, 37857, 37592 and 37960, I'm putting this part on time-lapse, following the exact same process, but speeding things up.
Live for the moment, live in the now, that's what they say. You would say it's easier than to cry. Live for the moment, live in the now, that's what they say, but I don't know how. Tomorrow is not here. Yesterday was not fair. To what has it all come to? Where has it gone? It was a great beginning, but where is it now? Live for the moment, live in the now, that's what they say. You would say it's easier than to cry. Live for the moment, live in the now, that's what they say, but I don't know how. I'm not feeling, I'm not seeing. It is all a blur, it is not like they say. Keeping it up is not easy. Keeping it going is not real. Where has it gone? Live for the moment, live in the now, that's what they say. You would say it's easier than to cry. Live for the moment, live in the now, that's what they say. You would say it's easier than to cry.
The next step is to quickly compare the pension fund contributions in Sage Business Cloud Payroll with the historical data to see if everything lines up. To do this, I first need to find the company period payroll totals under financial reports. Now I'm going to slot the historical report on the right hand side and start comparing the two. First up, the employee pension deduction, 8,015.87, fully matches the deduction in Sage. For the company contribution, I need to add two amounts together to match 12,000 596.36 in Sage, and there it is. That gives me all the certainty I need. The pension fund has been brought into the payroll software correctly. If your business offers a Provident Fund, just like a pension fund, you're not just providing a benefit, you're investing in your employees' financial security and well-being. And that goes a long way in building a motivated and committed workforce. But before you start stressing about the details of setting up and managing a Provident Fund, stop. Don't worry. I'll show you where to do it in Sage Business Cloud Payroll, how the process works so it's quick and effortless, and most importantly, what information you need before you even begin. From the Benefit Funds page, it's as simple as clicking the green Add Provident Fund button. Now this is where all that information you gathered finally comes into play. And right away, you'll notice this screen looks exactly like the pension fund setup page. Let's start entering the details. Fund name, straightforward. Clearance number, oof, a tricky one to get, but absolutely essential. And the contribution setup, for the description, I usually just use the fund name again. Calculation method, based on a percentage of specific earnings, which in this case is 100% of basic salary. Fund type, this is a defined contribution fund, not benefit fund. Your fund's details should specify which one applies. Employee contribution, 7%. Company contribution, also 7%, matching the employee's contribution. And that's it. Now let's save the fund. And there it is. Provident Fund successfully added to the company payroll setup. With the Provident Fund setup, the next step is to sign it to the right employees. Since we're working with past payroll data, the company has provided me with a list of employee codes for those enrolled. And having a clear list like this makes the process much easier. If you have access to similar records, it will save you time and ensure accuracy. I'll be working straight from this list to link the fund. Once assigned, the Provident Fund will automatically calculate deductions and contributions each payroll cycle. Hopefully my next step-by-step workflow will help if you ever need to do the same, because setting up a Provident Fund through an import can be a bit tricky. First, we need to find the payslip section. This time, I'm doing it from the employee details. With Sage displaying the employee details in the left sidebar. I'm already on employee code 37513. Let's check if they're on our Provident Fund list. And yes, there it is, right at the top. Now let's navigate to Payslip. Under Deductions, open the options and find Provident Fund. When selecting it, the funds I set up earlier will appear, so I'll make a selection. Next, enter the membership start date. There it is, September the 1st, 2007.
Disengage from the frantic world.
Back at the payslip, you can see that both the Provident Fund deduction and the company contribution have been added, matching exactly, since both the employee and the company contribute 7%. Nicely done. Let's go over the workflow again so that you can get a solid handle of how it works. I'm using the list of Provident Fund contributors, and next in line is employee 37725. Instead of scrolling through the entire employee list, it's much easier to use the employee search bar. Just type in the employee code, and there they are. Click on the employee's name to open all their payroll options. Now, under Deductions, click the plus sign. Then select Provident Fund from the list. Since this company only has one Provident Fund, I'll select it. And then enter the membership start date, 1st of April 2015.
Silence the critic, the power of unspoken words.
Save it by pressing OK.
To your soul.
And then back to the payslip to check the results. And there it is. Provident Fund deduction of $384.30. Perfectly matching the historical data, along with the company contribution. Another one done. Looking at my list, I've marked the employees I still need to process in yellow. And with only 2 done so far, there's still a long way to go. I'm going to link all the Provident Funds to the appropriate employees, but let's be honest, this is a tedious task, so instead of making you sit through it, let's fast track the section and get it done at warp speed.
Silence the critic, the power of unspoken words. That's your connection to your soul. What we resist shall persist. What we accept shall transform. Just fade away. Set your spirit free to breathe. In the stillness you will see. It's not in the noise where you find your voice.
And just like that, we're done. All employees are now linked to the Provident Fund. But now comes the multi-dollar question. Is the Provident Fund payroll run correct for this month? The only way to know for sure is to compare my new payroll totals in Sage to the historical numbers. Let's pull up the Payroll Totals report and start comparing. The employee deduction of $11,560.78 from history aligns perfectly with my Sage report. For the company contributions, I'll need to add 2 amounts together, and the result, $11,560.78, a perfect match. That's the proof I needed. All my work linking employees in Sage aligns perfectly with the historical data, and since I've already checked all the other amounts and they matched, there's no need to go over them again. Now here's something interesting. On the previous reports there was no ETI shown, but when I pulled up the historical EMP201, which the company provided me and is now displayed on the screen, I spotted an ETI amount of $9,356.17. I haven't touched ETI yet, and that's a problem, because if I want my EMP201 and EMP201 reports to be accurate and match past records, I completely overlooked it. I need to get this sorted. And this is exactly why I recommend double checking your EMP201 submission against your Sage report, just like I did before calling this done. So how do we fix this? There's a lot to consider when it comes to ETI, but don't worry, I'll take you through all the basic steps. Just follow along with my example and you should be fine. When looking at the ETI criteria, 3 key things stand out. The employee must be between 18 and 29 years old. The ETI amount depends on monthly remuneration ranging from R2,000 to R6,500. ETI is available for 2 years, but the calculation changes after the first 12 months. You can see the ETI criteria and calculation tables displayed on the screen, outlining exactly how these amounts are determined. Now, this isn't an ETI deep dive, so I won't go into further detail, maybe in a future video, who knows. But what's important to know is that Sage Business Cloud Payroll automatically calculates ETI based on the employee details you enter. What I'm going to show you next is how to ensure that ETI is correctly calculated when using an import. And trust me, these next few steps are extremely important to get right, to ensure the payroll software does its job properly. To start, the company provided me with a breakdown of ETI per employee so I can see exactly who is affected and whose ETI setup needs to be reviewed and corrected. Just a quick reminder, for demo purposes I've changed the real names and employee codes, so what you see on the screen are fake details. First up on my list is employee code 37938. Now read this note with me. This is something you absolutely need to get right. ETI is time sensitive. That means I have to tell Sage Business Cloud Payroll exactly when this employee first qualified for ETI. So the system applies the correct calculations for the second 12-month period and knows when the benefit should stop. If I don't enter this correctly, Sage will assume it's month 1 and extend ETI for a full 24 months from now, which is obviously wrong. That's why you see all of these months displayed here, because when it comes to ETI in Sage, getting the timing right is everything. But don't worry, it's simple. I've already obtained the periods when ETI was claimed in the past. So now I'm going to mark the months where this employee qualified. Once that's done, I'll press save. And there it is, the successfully saved message. That's exactly what I want to see. With the first employee's ETI setup done, let's move on to the next one, employee code 37940, displayed on the list along with the historical ETI claim periods right below it. In Sage Business Cloud Payroll, I'll head over to the employee details. Then, navigate to the ETI menu. For easy reference, I'm also displaying the historical ETI claimed from the previous payroll while marking the qualifying months, just like before. Once that's done, I'll press save. And if all goes well, the successfully saved message should appear, meaning another ETI setup is complete. Now, as you can see, there are still 9 more employees on my list who need their ETI setup. I've displayed all their names on the screen, and next up is employee code 37951. But since the process is exactly the same, I won't make you sit through each one. Instead, let's fast track this section while I go through the rest, marking the qualifying months, saving the entries, and making sure each setup is locked in.
Negative thoughts, they whisper your name, tell you you're broken, feeding the flame, holding you back, keeping you ashamed, making you
Now that the ETI setup is done, it's time for the moment of truth. When you're handling people's hard-earned money, there's absolutely no room for error. This isn't just about ticking boxes. It's about ensuring financial integrity down to the last cent. Let me show you how I validate everything by obtaining an ETI report in Sage Business Cloud Payroll. This report is your financial reality check. I'm going to walk you through where to find it and how I meticulously compare each employee's ETI details against their March history. From the familiar Sage homepage, in the top menu, head over to Reports. Then in the left side menu, select Financial. Scroll down to Employment Tax Incentive Detail. That's the report we're looking for. Press Preview for a quick glance of the report. Most important, as a quick check, is to find the total ETI for the month on the last page. And there it is, the amount of 9356.18. Rings a bell and agree with the total amount on the history report. I'm going to save this detailed analysis per employee report and use it to verify that each individual's ETI calculation is accurate when compared to their March history. I've placed the two reports side by side with the Sage report on the left and the history report on the right. Now I'll verify each employee's ETI amount individually. Employee code 37973, ETI amount of R25.42, marking it off as it agree with the history report. Employee code 37951, 357.75. Both reports agree. Employee code 37976, 1214.25, marking off on both reports. Employee code 37987, 1214.25, amounts match. Employee code 37969, 750, verified. Employee code 37938, 562.50, confirmed on both reports. Employee code 37970, 1214.25, matching. Employee code 37977, 1214.25, both reports in agreement. Employee code 37980, 1214.25, verified. Employee code 37940, 375, shooting out of the typical range, but matching on both reports. Employee code 37985, 1214.25, matching on both ends. Finally, I'm ensuring that the totals on both reports agree, which they do at 9,356.17. Now I have absolute certainty that my ETI amounts are correct. Whenever I complete an import, I always wrap up the workflow by reviewing the Sage Business Cloud Payroll EMP201 report and comparing it to historical records. This step is crucial because if these numbers don't match, you'll run into reconciliation issues when generating the EMP501 report and RP5 certificates. Let's pull up the EMP201 report. From the reports heading, navigate to Financial in the left sidebar. Then scroll down to EMP201 Monthly Pay-as-you-earn, SDL and UIF declarations. We're selecting March, running the preview and saving the report. To make this comparison easy, I've placed both reports side by side. Sage's EMP201 report on the left and the historical EMP201 figures on the right. Now let's check the numbers. Pay-as-you-earn total 14,723.11 matches the historical EMP501 report. SDL 3,640.56 is an exact match. UIF 7,068.32 aligns perfectly. Total EMP201 liability 25,431.99 is spot on. That's the final confirmation I need. The imported data aligns perfectly with the company's historical records. And that's it. Import complete. Every number accounted for, and everything lining up exactly as it should. But let's take a step back for a second. Think about what we've just accomplished. We didn't just transfer numbers from one system to another. We recreated an entire payroll history, down to the cent, making sure every deduction, contribution and tax figure reflects exactly what it should. That's the power of doing an import the right way. When done correctly, it eliminates manual errors, saves you hours of tedious work and ensures complete payroll accuracy. It means your payroll records aren't just numbers on a screen. They're reliable financial history that stands up to audits, reconciliations and compliance checks. This is the kind of work that makes a difference. Payroll isn't just about numbers, it's about trust. Trust from employees who rely on accurate salaries, trust from the business that its records are solid, and trust from compliance bodies that everything checks out. And now that this import is locked in and accurate, it's time to think ahead, because payroll doesn't stop, it moves forward. Up next, I'll show you how to roll forward to prepare for the next cycle's import and keep things running smoothly. Let's go for it. Locate the current period's date at the top of the screen. Click the drop down and select Roll Over. I'm moving into the new period, April 2023, and to complete the process, click the Finish button. You may see a message indicating that the process is still in progress. Click OK, and when it's complete, you'll be taken straight into the next period. From here, you can repeat the exact import process we've just done. And if you get stuck, you can refer back to this video as a reference to help and guide you. And that wraps it up. If you found this video helpful, be sure to check out part 1, where I'll walk you through importing employee details like names, addresses and more into the Sage Business Cloud Payroll system. That's a foundation for everything we did here.